Adapting characters who aren't very famous, aren't particularly strong, and aren't even visually appealing is definitely a risky move. But that's exactly the kind of risk Marvel needs to take right now to prove that they still have what it takes to tell a compelling story, that they don't have to rely on comic book recognition or the existing love from fans. At the same time, a work that delves into psychology and adds a touch of darkness is also a direction the studio should have explored sooner, especially now that their loyal audience is no longer so young. For that reason, at first glance, the movie about a ragtag group of anti-heroes might seem like just a stepping stone for Fantastic Four, but in reality, it's a crucial link that President Kevin Feige definitely doesn't want to mess up. So how has Thunderbolts managed to make itself interesting with a cast made up entirely of fighters and shooters? After Captain America 4 tried to deliver a political message but ended up being too naive, will the finale of Phase 5 repeat the same mistakes by trying too hard to be deep? Let's find the answer together in today's video. Note, I'll do my best not to reveal any spoilers, but if you want the most complete experience, you should watch the movie in theaters before coming back. The movie follows 6 supporting characters who have appeared in previous MCU works: Yelena Belova, Bucky Barnes, John Walker, Red Guardian, Ghost, and Taskmaster, all of whom share the common trait of going through dull, uneventful days. The movie quickly takes us to a chance event where the group discovers that they are actually undercover agents for Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, the CIA director, and she wants to eliminate the outlawed warriors who are being targeted by the government. In particular, de Fontaine is also running a secret project called Sentry, with the ambition of creating a superhuman possessing extraordinary powers. So, from a journey to save themselves from a cunning female politician, the Thunderbolts team is dragged into a battle to save New York City against an opponent they have almost no chance of defeating. The story opens with a heartfelt confession from Yelena, Natasha Romanoff's younger sister, saying that she feels the future ahead is completely meaningless. The film prepares viewers early on that the next 2 hours will delve deeply into the inner struggles of characters with dark pasts. Especially with the villain Sentry, as seen in the trailer, who possesses the power to trap his victims in a dark realm. This is a direct reference to psychological trauma and depression. It's probably not hard to say that the success or failure of Thunderbolts depends entirely on whether the internal battles within the minds of these anti-heroes are compelling enough for the audience. It may sound like a tough challenge, but in reality, Marvel has plenty of reference material at their disposal. First, they have their old friend James Gunn, who up to now has contributed a total of 5 quality works about teams with more flaws than skills to both superhero universes. That's not all. The film's director, Zack Strayer, is also in top form right now, and after the hit series Beef, he surely has plenty of experience working with hot-tempered, easily out-of-control characters. Taking full advantage of being a latecomer, Thunderbolt starts off quite similarly to the Suicide Squad, featuring a team of anti-heroes controlled by a high-ranking figure, along with a surprising plot twist right at the beginning of the film. Everything unfolds smoothly, and by the time the whole team comes face-to-face with the villain, I personally still find the movie engaging and intriguing. The story only starts to become polarized when each member demands their own development arc. And unfortunately, from the second act onward, the inevitable problem becomes apparent. Not every character in Thunderbolts is equally interesting. Let's talk about the ones who did well. Given a lot of screen time by the script and serving as the leader of the Thunderbolts, Yelena Belova is definitely the brightest spot in the film and also the most memorable character. Appearing at the beginning of the film as a laid-back girl who only takes on missions to kill time, Yelena is a complete transformation from her bland version in Black Widow 2021, as her inner struggles are carefully and thoroughly developed by the writers. It's not just about revisiting the haunting memories of her training days in the Red Room. Now, Yelena is genuinely conflicted about whether she should follow in Natasha's footsteps, step into the light, care about others, and fight for a specific cause. This not only fits with the fact that she has to integrate into a group that's used to working solo, but it also shows us just how much Natasha has influenced her younger sister. It reminds us that Natasha has always kept her family close to her heart, and I really like how the film conveys this without relying on too much dialogue. Yelena opening up to others also serves as a great stepping stone to develop the villain Sentry, and the relationship between these two characters has been interesting right from their very first scene together. Personally, I wasn't too drawn in by Bob's backstory because it was a bit predictable, but his character still made an impression thanks to the funny, charming, and very human conversations he had with Yelena. And fortunately, the film used the bond between these two outcasts as the fuel for the climax in the final act. I don't know about you guys, but I totally ship this couple. All in all, I think Yelena is a great example for future MCU movies to learn from. She doesn't need to become noble right away or spout moral lessons. The reasons behind her changes are all simple and relatable. So in the end, even when Yelena takes on a bigger role, she doesn't have to give up her quirky personality, nor does she need to make grand, dramatic statements about big issues. As we've seen, that's a double-edged sword that has kept Sam Wilson's Captain America from really carrying weight. In particular, I also really like how Yelena's past is revisited in the film. Instead of just describing the suffering she endured during training at the Red Room, director Zack Strayer chose a pretty fresh perspective, showing that Yelena was always the best in her class, and how sad she felt when her classmates were beaten because they couldn't keep up with her. I think it's those little details that make Yelena uniquely interesting, setting her apart from Natasha, who already holds such a solid place in fans' hearts. And when you think about it, isn't it a fresh perspective that made shows like Loki or Moon Knight stand out so much from the rest of the MCU? If I had to point out one thing that wasn't quite satisfying, it's that sometimes we still come across dialogue that feels a bit forced, like psychological therapy sessions telling you to love yourself. Fortunately, thanks to the talent of actress Florence Pugh, who, after films like Midsommar, Dune, and Oppenheimer, really doesn't need to prove her abilities anymore, these scenes didn't end up being worse. Riding on Yelena's appeal is her adoptive father, Red Guardian. And to be honest, even though this character is still as underdeveloped as he was when he first appeared in 2021, at least his boastfulness is a unique trait. Like any other team, the Thunderbolts need a comic relief, and having a super soldier dad from the old days who keeps dreaming of being famous again is pretty funny. Red Guardian's comedic level keeps rising over time, and even if you don't laugh out loud, you can't help but feel fond of this superhero fan because actor David Harbour really plays the role with such charm. Thinking back, having a father and son on the same team is also a unique feature of Thunderbolts, and we have the right to expect more new things from Red Guardian in the following works. As for John Walker, his case is pretty predictable because in the series The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, he already went through a fairly complete character development arc. For that reason, this second-string Captain America serves more as a supporting character this time, keeping his signature arrogance to add some comic relief when needed. At the same time, the flashback scenes are done very well, reminding us that this is a man who has a wife and young child waiting for him at home. This not only explains John's unlikable and sharp-tongued personality, but also shows us the difficult situation he's caught up in. It's a situation that even superhuman strength can't solve. Playing a similar role to John Walker, Bucky Barnes also mainly serves as support in his return this time. This is an understandable direction, since he's already a well-developed character, familiar to most of the audience. Everyone knows the story of the Winter Soldier by heart. So just seeing him show up looking cool and continuing to guide the next generation of heroes is enough to make those scenes memorable. Looking back at Bucky's entire lonely journey, perhaps in the end, Thunderbolts is the perfect place for the cold-hearted assassin to stand side by side with teammates who share his fate. However, looking to the future, maybe the studio should start considering a fresher direction for this character. Because the storyline where he joins the House of Representatives to try to fit into normal life hasn't really left much of an impression. In contrast to the two super soldiers mentioned above, Ava Starr, or Ghost, despite having a lot of potential to explore, was given far too little screen time. I really like her new suit and the impressive moves she shows off. I also like how she's become a funny person. However, the character's motivation for development is still a bit unclear. After being cured of her cellular disintegration disease by Janet in Ant-Man and the Wasp, we understand that Ava now has more faith in others, which explains her kind actions at the beginning of the movie. But it still feels like this character needs one more decisive push to truly develop feelings for the Thunderbolts team. It's quite unfortunate that the film chose not to explore Bill Foster, who acts as a father figure to Ava. I think that would have been a pretty promising direction. especially since she was also the one who directly caused the plot twist at the beginning of the movie that I mentioned earlier. But this issue is only briefly touched upon, and it seems like she doesn't really dwell on it or show much regret. Even so, this is something that's completely understandable because the film already had to juggle too many characters, and maybe Ava is being saved for future projects. However, there is one character that Thunderbolts didn't handle well, and that's the boss lady Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. In a series of previous Marvel works, she was portrayed as cunning and mysterious. In Thunderbolts, Fontaine is extremely passive. She even makes quite a few basic mistakes. For example, why would such an important plan like eliminating assassins be exposed to a random driver, and even let him see the location? Doesn't the CIA director have a trusted driver? Or why did she think she could easily kill people like Yelena, John Walker, Ghost, and other top-tier assassins in the world with such a sloppy plan like at the beginning of the movie? Fontaine's amateurishness makes the scenes where she tries to act superior to the Thunderbolts team, or imitates Tony Stark standing behind the bar offering drinks on top of the Avengers Tower, come off as pretty laughable, even a bit foolish. Not to mention, I really don't understand how she could hire a secretary as inexperienced and prone to leaking information as Mel, a character the movie honestly didn't even need. Luckily, we can temporarily overlook this lackluster Nick Fury knockoff because Fontaine's role in the movie isn't all that significant, and I think that's what you should do if you want to fully enjoy the satisfaction of the final battle. That's right, after all, the second act has its strengths but also its weaknesses. Thunderbolts wrapped up with an emotionally charged sequence, and it's one of the most well-rounded battles the MCU has delivered in recent times. It's not just moving because of the visually and audibly stunning scenes, but also because director Zack Snyder did exactly what he promised at the beginning of the film. It's a battle against darkness, both literally and figuratively. It's hard to talk about this sequence without giving away spoilers, but all you need to know is that it's creatively staged, has a clear purpose, and most importantly, it highlights the message that everyone should speak up about their problems and be open to receiving help. Just like how anti-heroes, if they stand alone, can easily be broken, but when they stand together, they perfectly make up for each other's flaws. If it had been any other Avenger, New York might not have been saved. It had to be those with troubled pasts who were the key to stopping Sentry. So that by the time the ending comes, I can almost overlook a significant number of plot holes from earlier. And if you really need an example, I think the Thunderbolts had an epic moment on par with the Guardians of the Galaxy holding hands to contain the Power Stone back in the day. Speaking of the fight scenes, it seems like Chairman Kevin Feige has really listened to the fans' complaints. In this movie, there are almost none of the terrible CGI scenes we saw before in Thor, Love and Thunder or Captain America 4. The visuals in Thunderbolts are polished and meticulous. The scenes where Ghost or Sentry show off their powers are all artistically and beautifully done. In particular, the film's dark color tone also fits the story well. And just a few glimpses of the Red Room flashing through Yelena's mind are already scary and memorable enough. All in all, Thunderbolts is a movie worth watching, and the team's efforts are truly commendable, especially considering that, aside from Bucky, all the other members originally came from some of the MCU's less memorable films. Being able to make these supporting characters interesting is definitely thanks to a well-crafted script, and even though it may not be outstanding or have a unique style like James Gunn's films, the passion behind it is something all fans will appreciate. Thunderbolts is definitely one of the most meaningful movies from Marvel, and it becomes even more significant as it premieres at a time when the studio really needs a morale boost after a series of failures. Hopefully, with the current signs of improvement, we'll get to witness a truly satisfying showdown with the supervillain Doom in the future. And those are Fim's thoughts on this summer blockbuster from the world's biggest cinematic universe. What about you guys? Do you think Thunderbolts deserves all the praise it's been getting on review sites? Leave a comment below so we can discuss it together. For now, goodbye and enjoy the movie.
May the Force be with you.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Play as time goes by.
Have a view, baby.